Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk New Mexico. I'm your host, Ty Bannerman. It has been nearly 4 years since OpenAI released ChatGPT upon the world, and it looks like generative AI is here to stay. From small businesses who create promotional materials with tools like Claude, ChatGPT, or Grok, to K-12 classrooms that encourage their students to use AI to complete assignments, more and more New Mexicans are using the tools in their everyday lives. But not everyone is happy about it. As AI becomes more pervasive, criticisms of the technology have also come to the forefront. Whether they cite environment or even if they just don't feel that a machine should replicate human creativity, some New Mexicans have become increasingly skeptical of AI's growing role in our world. Today on Let's Talk New Mexico, we are exploring how generative artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT, Sora, Claude, and Gemini are impacting the lives of New Mexicans, and we want our listeners to weigh in. How do you use AI in your businesses or creative endeavors? How has it helped you? Or do you think that AI tools are environmentally or ethically dubious or even just in bad taste? We'd love to hear your take. You can leave a message. You send us an email at letstalk@kunm.org or call in live during the show, 505-277-5866. Now, our first guest this morning is here to address the spiritual side of artificial intelligence, Archbishop John Wester. He has overseen the Archdiocese of Santa Fe since 2015, which includes much of northern, eastern, and central New Mexico, including Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Taos, and Las Vegas. Thank you so much for joining us today, Archbishop Wester.
You're welcome. Nice to be with you and all the others, Ty.
So, obviously, Catholicism is hugely important and influential in our state. And the reason I asked you to join us this morning is because in May, Pope Leo XIV released his first social encyclical, which I understand is basically a position statement for the Church as a whole regarding generative AI. It is entitled Magnificat Humanitas, Safeguarding the Human Person in the Time of Artificial Intelligence. So, Archbishop Wester, it is quite a long document, but could you tell us a bit about the most important points for our discussion on AI use in New Mexico?
Well, thank you, Ty. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful encyclical, and basically Pope Leo is trying to set out a moderate course. He's not rejecting AI. He's not saying we should get rid of it, obviously, but he is pointing out the dangers of it. I think basically, to me, he's saying that human beings have a heart and AI does not. He's simply saying AI cannot substitute for a human being and that AI shouldn't try to be a human being. And we know how already people have used it as an emotional support or think it could be a companion or a friend, that kind of thing. I think the Pope basically is saying he has laid out two visions, the Tower of Babel and the rebuilding of Jerusalem. The Tower of Babel was something that divided people between God and humanity and from human beings to human beings. And the rebuilding Jerusalem was everybody came together with a portion of the wall to build together, to come together. And that's what the Pope is basically saying. I'm struck also by, he does mention that we have to be careful of technology. For example, with youth, that youth can have AI can have a deleterious impact on youth. And of course, from my point of view, as you know, I wrote an encyclical on nuclear disarmament. To think that AI could be intricately involved with nuclear weapons is extraordinarily scary. So I think basically he's just trying to say, yeah, it can be a very effective tool. It can be used wisely and prudently, but we have to be careful. It's very dangerous, and it could really, it could actually destroy humanity.
Well, you mentioned nuclear weapons. One of the evocative phrases that he uses is that artificial intelligence needs to be disarmed. What does he mean by this?
Well, the studies that I've seen show that when they've given AI, for example, a scenario where these two countries with nuclear weapons might be at war, I believe, and please don't quote me, I don't have the exact numbers, but it was around three quarters of the time AI resorted to tactical nuclear warfare, and about a third of the time strategic nuclear warfare. So AI doesn't have a conscience. AI just looks at zeros and ones, and so human beings have consciences. Human beings know the impact of an Armageddon. And so it's quite scary to think that AI could conceivably take over the fighting of a war between nations with nuclear weapons.
And he compares some of the development of generative and large language AI models to the Industrial Revolution. How do you see this affecting New Mexico?
Well, I think his concern is on two principles that we have in Catholic social teaching. One is subsidiarity, and the other is solidarity. And subsidiarity, of course, means that we do things at the lowest possible level. The Pope is afraid that certain companies and certain individuals will have complete control over AI economically and in terms of its impact on human beings and society and businesses. And so it creates a gap, and that goes against solidarity. We should be together. There should be no gaps. But the average citizen should have something to say about how AI is used and developed. And secondly, solidarity, that we just shouldn't separate us. The AI has the potential of separating us, of making the poor poorer and the rich richer, and that big gap there. And that shouldn't be the case at all.
Speaking from your position here in New Mexico, what are your major concerns about AI use becoming more prominent in our state?
Well, certainly as the Archbishop of Santa Fe, I don't want our priests and deacons to be giving AI homilies in students. From a church point of view, but I think also I would be concerned with jobs, AI taking over jobs. And we're already dealing with extreme poverty in New Mexico, and AI has the potential of taking over jobs, and it could also have the potential of hurting our youth, as I already made mention of, and just families in general. As technology in itself, it has a tendency to separate. You see people at restaurants, each has their own cell phone, and so it has. I think that would be my main concern from a family point of view, from a work point of view, and as I say, from a church point of view. We want to see it separating people.
So what moral considerations do you think New Mexicans, government policymakers, industry leaders, people from all walks of life, whether or not they're Catholic, should keep in mind as AI continues to become more prominent in our lives?
From my point of view, I think Catholics would say this can be a good tool. This could be something that's very powerful and helpful. But to use it as a tool, to use it prudentially, and not to use it to... The human being cannot be replicated. God created us as each individual, unique human being, and that can't be replicated by technology. And so I think the key would be for us to keep that in mind, that we're human beings who can use AI as a tool, but AI must not use us as tools.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that you have an important event to travel to this morning, the Border Mass 250 in Tucson. So I thank you so much for taking some time to speak to us this morning, and safe travels.
Thanks, Ty. It's an honor to be on your show, and all the best to you.
Okay. Thank you. Now, we also have three guests in the studio this morning with us, and I'd like to introduce Patrick Bridges, the director of UNM's Center for Advanced Research Computing and a founding member of the New Mexico Artificial Intelligence Consortium. Good morning, Patrick. Thank you for coming in.
Good morning, Ty. Nice to be here.
And we have Chris Morales, who is the owner of the Golden Crown Panaderia. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And Robert McCormick, founder of the New Mexico, Albuquerque, and Santa Fe Foodies groups on Facebook and other social media platform. Appreciate you being here.
Hi, thank you.
So, Patrick,
yes.
Tell me about what the New Mexico AI Consortium does.
So the New Mexico AI Consortium is simply a group of national labs, universities, and colleges in the state who are working together to coordinate technology around AI in the state. So it includes Sandia, Los Alamos National Labs, UNM, New Mexico State, New Mexico Tech, and CNM. And we have a variety of we basically have a variety of activities where we work together as a set of institutions to coordinate our activities to leverage and promote the proper use of AI technologies in the state. So that includes thinking about how that impacts education, because many of us are educators, how it impacts industry and industry collaborations, how we can facilitate the use of these technologies in the state, how we can help people learn to use them. So it's really just a group of interested parties in the state that are trying to coordinate our activities to help for the betterment of the state.
And tell me about your use of AI. Are you an AI user?
I'm an AI user. I will admit to having been something of an AI skeptic until a few years ago. But I've found AI to be very useful for doing things that I would typically do myself that just tend to be very tedious. So there's a variety of cases where I've needed to generate figures in PowerPoint presentations or write large documents that I knew how to do it. I knew what I wanted it to look like. It was just going to take a lot of time. It was going to be tedious. And I'd looked for tools to help me do it just sort of directly, and I couldn't find what I needed. And so I had colleagues that were much more aggressive in their use of AI who told me that you should give these AI tools a try to solve these problems that you're having. And I found it to be very useful for those kinds of tasks, for generating figures, for helping write relatively formulaic documents, for doing things that I knew how to do, but were just time-consuming and painful. And having the computer do it and being able to tell the computer in English how to do it freed up a lot of time for me to do more interesting and creative things that I enjoyed spending my time on.
And when you say you were an early skeptic, can you tell me about what were you skeptical of?
I just had never. I've been in computer science for 35, 40 years, and so I've seen AI grow and change over the years. From when I was doing simple things with neural networks in science fair in high school to today, and I always saw the limitations of what it could do as the technology developed. And so having not used it personally to see what it could do, and to see how powerful it was, I just was sort of naturally skeptical. But then I actually tried it out at the encouragement of some colleagues, and it's been very powerful, and I use it probably not daily, but certainly at least weekly and more to do things where like I say, where typically I know what the correct thing should look like, and it's as a time saver to help me get those results more quickly that I can then double check and make sure they do what I need them to do.
So we have reached the point where many of us encounter generative AIs like ChatGPT in our day-to-day lives, Claude or Grok. But frankly, many of us, myself included, don't necessarily really understand how it works. What would you say are some of the biggest misunderstandings of how AI works?
So, the AIs are basically taking a huge body of existing materials that's been curated and given to them to train how to draw connections between text and images and sounds and whatever materials are used to train them. And they can draw very complex connections. So it's not just, this word comes after this word comes after this word. It can aggregate and say, these various concepts, these various sets of words, something like a concept, are related to these sets of words. And so it can extract and sort of draw statistical structure from all of the various materials that it has been trained on. And then using that, it can it takes the prompt that we give it, the context we give it of past conversations, and uses that to figure out what an appropriate answer would look like. But it's only based on what information it's given. And so, what information it was trained on. If it's not trained on information, if there's nothing there for it to draw from, it's going to give an answer, but that answer may or may not be appropriate. If there's conflicts in the data it was trained on, then what choice what it chooses to present, is very much going to depend on what the computer may in some cases semi-randomly choose to do in that particular case. It's not going to give the same answer every time necessarily, and that answer is going to be very dependent on, on the data on which it was trained.
Right. You are listening to Let's Talk New Mexico on 89.9 KUNM. Today we are discussing the growing impact of artificial intelligence in our state. We just heard from Archbishop Wester discussing Pope Leo XIV's recent encyclical on the subject, and now we are speaking to Patrick Bridges about the more technical side. We'd love to hear from you, too. What is your take on the Pope's call to disarm AI and remain vigilant against its potential abuses? You can give us a call at 505-277-5866 or email us at letstalk@kunm.org. Stay with us. Welcome back to Let's Talk New Mexico. I'm your host, Ty Bannerman. So we are speaking to Patrick Bridges, the director of UNM's Center for Advanced Research Computing and a founding member of the New Mexico Artificial Intelligence Consortium. Patrick, we were just speaking to the Archbishop about the Pope's encyclical, basically outlining positive and negative ways that AI might be used in the future. What are your personal feelings about how AI can be used responsibly versus irresponsibly?
I mean, AI is a tool. Right, it's a technology that we've created that we as humans decide how to use and what the appropriate ways to use it for are. I don't view it as any more or less than that. It's a very powerful tool. It's a potentially transformative tool. It's going to have large impacts on. They can have large impacts on how we do things. As you've said, as the Archbishop noted, it may change how we, how we work. And what different jobs do and how people do accomplish certain tasks. And that has potential impacts on society that we have to navigate. That doesn't, so we have to figure out the people have to figure out how to use these tools appropriately.
Now, one of your colleagues at UNM, Professor Melanie Moses, urges lawmakers to consider regulating AI more closely and putting in certain guardrails. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with Melanie on this case. The AIs are very powerful tools. They have lots of, and they can be used in ways that are both ethical, like any tool, ethical and unethical. The companies that are building them have a lot of incentive to make as much money as they can because they're companies whose job it is to make money for their shareholders. Right. We, as the people that are using these tools, need to figure out what we think is what are appropriate and inappropriate ways to use these tools. We've seen this issue crop up recently with some of the new frontier AI models around cybersecurity, where Anthropic's latest version of Claude, they were providing evidence that it could be used to launch cybersecurity attacks broadly on large swaths of computers. So as opposed to releasing it immediately, the federal government and Anthropic were trying to figure out what's the right way forward so that these tools are not released to be used maliciously and inappropriately. Those are the conversations that we need to have as a society, as individual citizens, to figure out what guardrails should do. How should we use these tools ourselves? How should we expect what should we want our fellow citizens to be doing with these tools? As what guardrails should the government be placing on the use of these tools? And because they're so powerful, that's not an easy discussion to have. And so the advice of the Pope and the Archbishop on this is appropriate. Melanie's advice I very much agree with.
Do you think that there's any kind of regulation that should be prioritized at this point as far as rules?
I don't have a firm opinion on exactly the right set of rules yet. No.
Okay. So one of the biggest flashpoints around AI right now is the loss of jobs because this is reshaping the economy. There was a story this morning here on Morning Edition about two former governors who are working with governors to prepare states for how AI will impact jobs. How is the consortium working on this issue?
So we're working with a variety of industries to help them learn to deploy AI techniques for themselves. We have a variety of experts across the state at the national labs at the universities, all of whom are using AIs. We have a variety of educational programs across the state, ranging from micro-credential programs at New Mexico State to programs at UNM Continuing Ed, programs on main campus. How to engage the community to teach people how to use these tools well, to use them to make their jobs better, to do their jobs more effectively is something that we really, I think, need to be thinking about.
May I interject real quick?
Absolutely. So this is Robert McCormick, who is the Main moderator and founder of the New Mexico Foodies Group.
Thank you. As on the other side of it, that it's taking away jobs, as a small business person, it's enabling me to grow my business in a number of ways. And I also do have humans on my team that I pay, D, for example. And I do use AI, and it's helping me and my website developers and everybody to help advance our small business goals also. So there is that side of it also.
Right.
As I sometimes say, it's, computers are very powerful things. And as a computer scientist, I've spent 20, 30, 40 years learning to talk computer. And all of us these days have in one way, shape, or form have to learn to talk computer or crafted our jobs or how we do things to talk in the strange ways that computers want us to say things for them to be able to do things for us. And so one of the things AI provides us is for the ability to tell the computer what to do for us in our language. Now, that doesn't mean that it will do what we want it to exactly, but it means that it's much more, it enables many more people to leverage the power of computers to do things easily that used to be hard to do before. The things that humans do well, I think humans should still do. And so, like I said earlier, I've used this to let me do more human things, and have the AI do the more automated things, and it's sort of made me more effective. It's let me do more. I think it has the opportunity to let New Mexicans in general do more and be more effective and start businesses and run businesses run more businesses without having to, I think that's potentially very transformative.
I see.
I use it to help craft statements for my foodies groups, of which we have like 170,000 members.
Yes.
And when I want to do a statement, a PR announcement or something professionally crafted, I'll put all my information into ChatGPT and write it, and then I'll say, please polish this in a professional manner.
Right.
And it pops out a beautiful version of exactly what I'm trying to say, just much better phrased. So
I'd like to bring into the conversation Diane Fleming, who is joining us by Zoom this morning. She is the co-founder of the group Protect Our Resources, a nonpartisan organization opposed to the construction of a data center by Aderix LLC near Raton, New Mexico. Good morning, Diane.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So we wanted to talk a little bit about data centers because they are an integral part of the AI boom, with many proponents say that they will be bringing jobs and opportunities to areas where they are built. Tell me why your group is opposed to building one in Raton.
Our research has shown that the job promises are not what they pan out to be. The current phase one from the Aderix Corporation that wants to take over the Kmart building would bring. Excuse me?
I was just saying in Raton.
Raton, right, correct. Would bring approximately less than 10 jobs to the community. They would be janitorial or maintenance and security jobs. Even the building, the reconstruction of the Kmart building or any phase 2 or phase 3 projects they would bring their crews in because there's clearly not crews here that could do what they need them to do. So we're opposed because jobs don't pan out. We're opposed because water is precious. We're in a drought. We are aware that utility bills go up. We do not have the power from our utility structure right now to power phase 2 and 3. But through the MOU that was provided to the commissioners, they are counting on us providing the power. So we're aware that there's generators that are held on, that are running in case the power goes out, which we do lose power, and they need to be constantly running. So there'll be generators and noise from that. There's noise from the data center itself that are really harmful in the communities where they are existing. So there's a 24/7 hum that is disruptive. So those are the main reasons right there.
And where do things currently stand with the Raton Data Center?
Currently, we have 2 more months for a month and a half left on the MOU, which allowed Aderix a 6-month feasibility study, for them to do their feasibility study. So that date is up on August 10th. At this point, right now, the commissioners are in process of talking about a moratorium, and I think they're potentially going to wait until August 10th, but they're talking about a 6-month moratorium so they can do more research into these issues that I just talked about.
And what happens next?
So what happens next is we find out what happens on August 10th. We're presenting factual information. We have hundreds of hours into research about what's happening around the country in other communities, in rural communities, what the effects of AI centers that have happened there, and how they haven't helped the community, how the tax base, the tax promises, the tax incentives that are given to the companies aren't really like feeding back into the community. So we're doing tons of research. We're presenting to the commissioners on every time they meet, twice a month, our perspectives, and we're meeting with them. And we're meeting every other week, strategizing how to really educate the public and our government about why we don't want it, which is beyond the power in the water.
And what are your thoughts on AI in general, or generative AI?
Well, just to address Patrick Briggs, and I would say that there were, when we talk about putting guardrails and we talk about the referendums that we could put into place. Number one, we can't have referendums right now.
Why not?
Because our President Trump has said no referendums on AI, and has really made it pretty much illegal for communities and states, towns to create their own guardrails. And when I think about guardrails, and I think about the restrictions that can be put on, I think about a guardrail. You're driving down the highway, or you're driving down a canyon road. There's a guardrail. That doesn't stop a truck going 80 miles an hour from going off the side. And damage being done to the environment, to the people, So we have guardrails in place, but guardrails and restrictions have not proven to be able to stop the bad stuff from happening.
Well, thank you, Diane. So Patrick, I'm sorry?
One more thing I would really...
Okay, one more thing. Sure, go ahead.
And it's brief, very brief. Humanity has not proven... I agree. AI is a wonderful tool. It can be great. But we have not proven ourselves as humanity, as human beings, to be able to trust that every single one of us has everybody else's best interest in mind. So this tool can be used so destructively. Bill Gates is quoted as saying humans won't be needed for most things. Larry Ellison says that citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly reporting everything that's going on. Mark Zuckerberg has said that, let me go back. Dr. Jeffrey Hinton, godfather of AI, believes there's a 10 to 20% chance that AI could wipe us out. Guardrails won't stop that.
Okay, thank you, Dan. So, Patrick, what is your response?
So I'm not aware of anything that prevents communities from having referendums legally. I know the president has made statements about him not liking things, but personally, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not aware of anything legally that prevents communities from holding referendums on what they think is appropriate in their community. I think that's something communities need to decide. Data centers are a complicated topic. The devil really is in the details on how they're built, on how they're constructed, on how they use resources. Communities asking questions to say exactly what's going to go here, how are these things going to be stood up, what are their impacts going to be on our community, what are their benefits to our community. Those are entirely appropriate questions for people to be asking. Now, they're powerful tools. These data centers are going to be built. They're going to be built in places, and I think it's up to us to decide what is appropriate, and the people of Raton need to decide what's appropriate in their community.
So I just got a message from Megan Kamrick, who is our producer and the head of the newsroom here. And she points out that the head of New Mexico's Office of Broadband Access did tell legislatures this week that regulations on AI could threaten additional broadband funding. So I guess there is a sort of an atmosphere of potential squashing of local regulations. Sure. Okay. Well, let's see. I'd like to kind of expand this conversation into a more day-to-day sort of area. And one of the areas where we are seeing the biggest uptick in generative AI use is for promotional purposes in small businesses and the restaurant industries. We got logos, ads, videos, and flyers produced by AI are popping up regularly on social media, but lately, it also appears to be that there's a bit more of a backlash than before, perhaps. So we're going to speak to Christopher Morales, the owner of Golden Crown Panaderia in Albuquerque, about his experience using AI, and Robert McCormick, founder of Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and New Mexico Foodies, which you can find on basically every social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, etc. So Chris, you are the owner of Golden Crown in Albuquerque. You have worked hard bringing cutting-edge tech to the restaurant over the years. I remember webcams showing how much bread was in stock on your shelves about a decade ago. There was a hydroponic garden experiment for a bit.
Aquaponic garden, yep.
Aquaponic garden. And that now also includes trying out AI for promotion. So, Chris, can you tell me about your experience using AI in your business?
Yeah, let me kind of give a little history of myself so that people can have a little bit of better understanding that I'm not just a baker. My degree is in computer animation and graphics with a minor in computer programming. Back before shopping carts were a thing where it was only allowed to the Fortune 500 because they had the amount of money to be able to do it. When we got approached by the Food Network to be on a show called Food Finds, the main requirement was, can you be able to ship your product across the country? At that time, shopping carts didn't really exist. So I had to hand code and program our shopping cart software based on PHP and using a SQL database to be able to do that. And that was able to do our shopping system, which I did at the time, create an API that interfaced with UPS, FedEx, DHL for all our shipping information to be able to get real-time quotes. At that time, it was unheard of, where today now it's completely out of the box. Pretty much anybody can be able to do it who doesn't have the technical skill set that I gained through my education. The biggest thing I want to kind of point here and kind of narrow the scope of this topic is exactly the graphic arts side of running your business. Anywhere between building the menu to doing a photo or photo shoot, putting an graphic overlay over it. In my experience with learning how to do CGI animation like you would see in Pixar or LucasArts, we were using programs, or I used a program called Lightwave and Maya for a lot of the graphic arts that we put into our stuff at the bakery for promotional stuff. So let me give a little bit thing, because this kind of goes into the talks of servers and water usage and stuff. So when you are making film's done in 24 frames per second, or if you're doing traditional video on TV, you're looking at 30 frames per second. When you do any type of animation, that animation has to be rendered, and it goes to what's called a rendering farm. So for an example, if I'm doing Inception, right, and I'm doing the water scene for Inception, I have a team. I will create that design of what we're looking at with a camera view, but then I have to send that over to a render farm, and each frame can take anywhere between 2 hours to 24 hours for it to be rendered at. So what I'm trying to get to is that we are at a pinnacle point where a small business such as mine can be able to harness what big Fortune 500 companies have access to currently. For an example, Pixar itself has a rendering farm that has over 151,000 GPUs or CPUs, depending on how you want to look at it. LucasArts, which is ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, has over 200,000 GPUs or CPUs who do all these types of renderings. the question, and a lot of people are trying to say is, okay, well, we're having these new server farms, and they're going to be requiring all this energy. This has already been happening. The internet is housed somewhere, and it's on servers throughout the whole country, and in buildings like an old Kmart or warehouses that are no longer being used for manufacturing. They've been repurposed over the years, and that's where they hold the servers. For an example, with my bakery, when I first started developing a website, my server was in Louisiana in a big server farm where people were paid to protect the customer data at that particular server farm. So as a small business person who can use AI to generate me a menu, I am now utilizing the harness for be able to get a menu created. Now, in a traditional sense, before AI, I would have to go to somebody and say, can you build me a menu? And then the renditions going back and forth of the menu, what are the graphics I want it to look like, the pricing, the structure, could cost me anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000. Well, guess what we have? We have menu prices, changes, right? For an example, right now we're going through a minimum wage increase here in the Bernalillo County, Albuquerque region. So my prices, I'm going to have to change them. Well, either I hold that skill set as a DIY type of person, or I have to go to somebody and have that menu pricing be changed. Well, then they're going to charge me X amount of money because they hold my template for my menu system, right? So the big thing that's happening right now is small business owners such as myself, and there's hundreds of them in Albuquerque, are finally getting the power to be able to manage their business themselves without having all the skill sets that are required to be able to do that. To be able to be a programmer, know graphic design, know the platforms can take months or even years to be effective on it. Whereas now with the AI, it allows you to be able to create a menu. One of the things I was noticing on Albuquerque Foodies is that a restaurant here in town created a menu with AI, no picture of the product itself, but just the menu itself. And the amount of backlash of saying, oh, we're going to protest you, we're going to cancel you, we're not going to visit your restaurant anymore because you used AI, why don't you hire local talent? Like in my situation, people have told me the same thing. I am the local talent. That's what my degree was in.
You know what the problem is, really?
So hold on, guys. We do have to take a very quick break here, and then we'll come right back to you, Robert. You are listening to Let's Talk New Mexico. I'm Ty Bannerman. What are your thoughts on the proliferation of AI throughout our lives? Call us, 505-277-5866. This is Let's Talk New Mexico. This morning we're discussing the ins and outs of generative AI and how it's affecting the lives of New Mexicans. We do want to hear from you. Are you using AI to be more effective, to be creative, or do you just refuse to use it at all? Why? Call us at 505-277-5866. And just before break, we were having a bit of a lively conversation about restaurants and other small businesses using AI to generate graphic promotional materials and the backlash that sometimes comes with it. Robert, I believe you were about to say something.
Well, am I allowed to cuss? No, I can't.
No.
Right, I have to
Let's
watch
be
out.
clear.
I'm pretty bad. It's my New York City part. So the thing about the AI stuff that's interesting is that it's so easy to create a graphic promotion item with AI that a lot of them just look like garbage. They look fake. And with the food industry in particular, in restaurants, people that participate in food groups or that are looking at restaurant advertisements and all that, their main concern, and actually this might be an overall topic, is authenticity. Right? The line between something that is AI or fake or real. And that really gets personal and important when it comes down to food, because people want to see a real food image. They want to see, they would prefer to see a half-eaten plate that looks gross than this really fake-looking, touched-up food photo, because it's real.
What I find very interesting about, specifically on the real photo, companies. Let's just use McDonald's as an easy example because it's pretty prevalent. McDonald's themselves will spend over $100,000 taking a food photo. Right, perfect bun, perfect lettuce, perfect tomatoes, perfect mayo, which is not mayo, it's glue. Right, the meat, everything that goes along with it.
The It's not real meat though; it's fake. But,
Yeah, it is fake. It totally is. But as a society, people will accept that. And if you pass by pretty much any McDonald's in this country, there's always a line through the drive-thru. Now, if I myself decide to take a photo and enhance it some way, people are going to cancel culture me and say, I'm not coming into your restaurant. I did a...
No, when you say like an AI enhancement, I guess.
It could be an AI enhancement, or it can be in the traditional sense that I have is with my Photoshop.
Okay.
That I have access to with my Lightwave or my Maya, any of my programs I can be able to do that with. As a small business, I don't get that grace that a McDonald's will do, and people will come in droves for that at those restaurants. I mean, we're going to have In-N-Out Burger coming into Albuquerque, 3 locations. Each of those stores are going to do anywhere between $3 million to $4 million per location.
Yeah.
You know, and so but they get the grace that their graphic menu looks absolutely. We know it's not real, but they'll get customers going in and out of the store all day long. But if I do something along those lines, forget it. I am canceled. I'm blacklisted. I'm a horrible human being. I'm this and this and this. And it's just mind-boggling the difference between the two.
It's fascinating how the public holds local businesses to a higher standard than to a lot of these giant garbage fast food chains and stuff. So it's very fascinating.
So just real quick, one of the questions that I have when you were speaking about, using AI and how powerful it can be for making a menu, before you would have engaged other members of the community to produce that menu.
Well,
so
I wouldn't, but other restaurants have to because they don't have that skill set that I have.
Okay, so you would have done it yourself.
I do all my graphic art is all done by me.
Do you think that there is a legitimate concern for folks who are, in the graphic design industry locally that would have previously been employed by another restaurant to produce that menu that are cut out?
No, not at all. I mean, if you have the talent to be able to do it, there's going to be plenty of jobs for you to do it. And here's the reason why. As small businesses start increasing their sales because they have more tools readily available to them, the people who are the DIYs, like myself, for an example, as my business keeps on growing and I keep on busier, what am I going to do? Will I rather make cookies for my labor that I can do a lot of amount of and make a lot of money doing that, or do I pay somebody a couple $100 to be able to do something? Now, right now at this particular time, the answer is I can't hire somebody to be able to do a particular graphic design job because the finances are not there. The sales are not there. But when the sales are, as an owner, you start having to delegate all the tasks that are happening to you. So it's the chicken before the egg type of thing, right? If you have the money to be able to do that and you have people that you trust, you're going to hire that out and have people do that for you. Or are you in a person where money is so tight and you can't figure out what bill you're going to pay next? Are you going to hire somebody to do your graphic? No, right? And the one thing about marketing, and I want to set this for the whole general public, when we get approached by any type of company, either be TV, radio, magazine, social media, influencers, whatever it is, they want to charge you. Let's say, for example, $10,000 to run an advertising campaign. There is no guarantee that I'm going to make that $10,000 back or even have higher sales that's supposed to generate from that.
Right.
And that's where it becomes really a sticky point on with your business of how are you going to gamble your money? Because it literally is a gamble. Now, I'll just give a quick example. On a little bit on advertising. I have 2 ads running. And any type of good marketer will do an A/B style testing. I have what are called marranitos. They're little molasses cookies made with betel and silo, right? I have 2 ad campaigns running right now. One is a still image of the marranitos, of the picture, and then I have a very AI animated pigs and bears dancing on there. They get up, they dance a little bit, and they fall back down. Which one is making me more money?
Which one?
The fake one?
The fake one, the AI one. Now,
see.
the animation itself is clearly AI. The actual cookie itself is the original cookie.
Right.
Right? But I have made specifically to show that I'm not trying to pass these cookies that they're really going to dance. It's not a reality. But that's the one that gives me the more sales. So, and I actually saved this because I wanted to point this out here for you guys. The total amount of sales or avenue that's accredited to this, I spent, now this is just the Google ad spend, so I had to pay for my ad to be in front of somebody. I paid $696. It has generated $4,033 in sales.
Okay, so that's pretty significant. Now we have a call from Pat in Albuquerque. Good morning, Pat. What would you like to add to the conversation today?
Yes, thank you. Actually, my name is Pat Walsh, and I'm a co-founder with Diane Fleming of the Protect Our Resources group in Raton, coming to Albuquerque for a meeting. One of the things that I'm hearing is how AI can be used as a great tool for business. And I can see where that would really be advantageous to a small business. However, I kind of wanted to take this to the macro level. New Mexico is part of the southwestern United States, which is part of the globe. And we are in a situation where human-caused climate change is affecting all of us, especially in the Southwest. Computer climate models have said we're going to be getting hotter and drier. We have fires erupting. We're having water issues around our state. This is a big deal. And unfortunately, the creation of AI data centers to create Bitcoin and things that aren't really, I think, useful to the regular person are sucking up a huge amount of energy and putting out a lot of greenhouse gases that are a problem for all of us. So I just kind of wanted to zoom out from New Mexico and have us think big picture for a moment.
Well, I appreciate your comment. Thank you so much for calling, Pat. We have another call from Zoe in Albuquerque.
Hi.
Hi. What are your thoughts on the conversation today?
So I know I cut out for a little bit just because I called in, but I wanted to call and discuss the comment that the owner of the local business, I'm so sorry I didn't catch your name, but made about how big corporations are held to different standards as opposed to local businesses, especially when it comes to advertising and the incorporation of AI into their restaurant business. And I think the reason why people might have that is because everyone knows that corporations have no soul and they don't care about the community. Whereas local businesses, we just have the assumption that you're local, you're one of us, you care about us. And so you're willing to put forth in that extra effort to show that care. And even if that boils down to whether or not you're using a doctored up image of your food or not, that does reflect that. And especially the previous comment, because we are in a drought, because we are in such a dire situation environmentally, showing that you are using AI shows that you might have misaligned values within your community. And so I think that's might be why people contribute or have those different standards.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Zoe. Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me put it in a different highlight. I've been to Taiwan and I had a wonderful tour of the factory out in Taiwan. At that factory, they were making the computer chips, and next door to that factory was the plasma screen factory for it. Out there, because the power grid was so bad and so inconsistent, each of the factories had to build their own power grid for their location. I also know a few of the head engineers for these facilities and how they utilize water for the facilities. Same thing here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where technically Rio Rancho, you have Intel. Well, Intel builds and fabs out computer chips. They have taken in great extensive detail on how to maintain the natural resources that are utilized into computer chip manufacturing. It's going to be the same thing here with render farms or server farms. If you don't take care of the resources that you're going to be utilizing for these server farms, you're not going to have a server farm anymore, right? And so we have always had server farms since like the 1990s, even a little bit earlier, and it's going to continue on going. How these server farms and where they're located at is we're up to debate now because it's now so forefront. But this has been happening for a long time. I mean, if you are a movie person and you've seen Marvel, or Pixar, we're at Toy Story 5 right now, you're assuming that you are assuming assimilating the server farms that went to generate those movies.
And Robert, I wanted to talk to you about, you were talking about how the perception of authenticity is a factor in how people in your restaurant groups react to AI flyers. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I feel like it kind of fits in with what Zoe was saying.
Right before the lady called in, I was making that point about how local businesses are held to a higher standard. And the lady actually confirmed that people really, local businesses is a lot more important for representing our communities and all that kind of stuff. And so people get very personal about it. And that's why people are so critical about local businesses on the foodies groups. Why can't, that gets so viciously critical in a protective, twisted way. It's, and really at the core is because they care about the community. And it's bizarre. All right, hang on, let me talk for a second. Yeah. So that's an important point. So the authenticity of the promos and what's happening with the AI stuff is that it's so easy to spin out a promo that a lot of the business owners are just being lazy. And now they're busy, not lazy in general, because you guys have very difficult lives running a restaurant. Totally get that. But it's so easy just to pop something out. They look very fake, a lot of them. And so the public is like, this doesn't even look like, like a real food image, or the promo just looks super AI and fake, and they don't like it. And so if using that technology is great, but you just need to put some effort into it. I have a band, and the guy that does my designs for my band, our promos recently have been AI generated. They look great because he's an artist and he puts his time into it, and they look a lot better than some of the just spitting some garbage out. Right. And so that's the thing, is it's so easy that they're just, and you're busy, I get it. But just put some time into it, and people will be okay with it. If it looks good and if it looks legit and authentic, people will be okay with the ad.
So you're saying you're not against AI ads necessarily, but people should work at them a little bit.
No, it's a new technology. It's a new tool, just like everything, just like the automobile, just like a printing press, just like telephones. It's a new technology if it's used correctly, and it will get better in time, which is why we're not banning people from using them we're in our groups, because the technology will get better, the ads will get better as people learn how to use them also. So, because we get a lot of members that message me saying, hey, ban that restaurant. I'm like, I'm not going to ban the restaurant for them trying to promote their business. Yeah, I agree with you. The ad looks like garbage, but just give it some time. Give it some time, and, things are going to work out.
I want to make a real quick
well, the music started. Can you just real quick?
All right, real quick. People will hold you to a higher standard, but the dollars that they holding you to are not coming through. And that's the reason why every week there's a restaurant going bankrupt and going out of business.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. So that is the end of the show. Obviously, AI is a huge issue. It will be for the foreseeable future. Expect us to revisit this topic. Thanks to our callers, and especially thank you to our guests, Archbishop Wester, Patrick Bridges, Robert McCormick, Christopher Morales, and Diane Fleming. Next week, we're talking about guts. Well, gut health anyway. You can check out the show at KUNM Radio on YouTube. Audio will be streaming at KUNM.org soon. And there is a Let's Talk New Mexico podcast on Apple and Spotify. Our engineer today was Marino Spencer. Florian Knowles took your calls. Megan Kamrick produced the show. I'm Ty Bannerman, and thank you for listening to Let's Talk New Mexico.